I am so delighted that Frasier is back. Ham is the first episode of the second season of Frasier, directed, of course, by the wonderful James Burrows. And as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. I'll go through things chronologically, but to sum up, first of all, it's wonderful. It's a really solid start, and it starts off in the bar. And we learn that Frasier and Alan have bought a ham. They're importing a ham from Spain to celebrate decades of friendship. Freddy then comes in, and we learn that actually Alan had kind of encouraged him to drop out of Harvard. He'd asked for advice, and needless to say, Frasier is not very happy. And we have this really brilliant exchange, this brilliant performance from Kelsey where he's basically telling Freddy how much he loves him and supports his decision. And then he's angry at Alan, and it goes back and forth. And it's really delightful, very, very well done. Obviously not delightful for Frasier, but very entertaining. We're then in Frasier's apartment, and Olivia is there. And it turns out that Alan once gave her some advice. And it didn't exactly go to plan in hindsight, but at the same time, would she give up the life she has now? She basically found out that an ex is now doing very, very well. And she's looking at photos, and we learn that he has a very wealthy lifestyle. But at the same time, I'd like to think that Olivia would be proud of her achievements and that deep down, she doesn't regret her decision. Hopefully. Frasier then goes to see Alan. And he starts to apologise for his overreaction, and when Alan is out of the room, Frasier finds an enchanted snooker ball in his desk, which I have to say is pretty delightful, because it's an English version of a magic 8-ball, and Frasier is playing with this, and he then realises that one of the options is indubitably, which is apparently something Alan said to various people when they asked him for advice, and then one of my favourite bits in the entire episode, Frasier asks the snooker ball, did Alan use a ridiculous toy to determine my son's future? And the outcome he got, and I absolutely love Kelsey Grammer's performance here. It said, obviously, you bloody loon, which I loved. I thought it was fantastic. The ham then arrives at the apartment. David is there to care for it, and Eve is in the apartment as well, and they start eating the pig. It's apparently really good ham. We then cut back to the office, and Alan offers an explanation for the advice that he gave, and I believed it. It sounded more logical, and what I really love about this is that with Alan, we go back and forth with him being really intelligent, really smart, clear thinking, and also being a bit of a fool. And I like that we have both sides of this character, and often they both work in harmony, as we see here. He had his reasons for giving this advice, and as he said, the ball was for whimsy. And I like the fact that we have these different sides to Alan, and we're never led too long to believe that he's just a bumbling idiot. Every time that happens, something will happen where we find out he's done something with purpose, with logic, and I just think they've done an amazing job with the character, with the writing of the character, and obviously Nicholas Lyndhurst does an amazing job with the performance. And he also points out, and I think this would have hurt Frasier, he points out that he didn't tell Freddy to go to Frasier for advice because he would have given his son bad advice. And that the advice Alan gave him, to paraphrase his words, gave him the strength to realise what was important to Freddy and the confidence to follow through with that. And I thought it was a pretty moving scene. And yes, Frasier hearing that he'd probably give his son bad advice because he wouldn't be thinking about what Freddy wants and what's right for Freddy, I think is a pretty reasonable assessment of the situation. We're then back with the ham, with David, and it is just chaotic. It's a beautifully executed scene. It was mildly funny. And then when the ham started spinning in the garbage disposal, I laughed a lot. I thought that was just perfect. Not perfect for David, but certainly I found it very entertaining. We're then at the fire station. The Dalmatian is in the scene. The dog is still in the show. He doesn't have a role to play here. He's just sitting nicely on a bed in the corner, but I was delighted to see him. And this is another fantastically executed scene. The performance of the children in this, absolutely brilliant. Freddy is talking to some children about being a firefighter, and they got onto the topic of the advice that one of Freddy's professors, obviously Alan, gave him, and the children are just amazing. And one of them said, your teacher asked a toy if you should be a firefighter, and it just snowballed from there. And they basically interrogated him. And my favourite quote from the entire scene, because it's just so blunt, is in reference to Frasier being mad at Alan. And the child says, he should be mad at you. You're the coward who caused all this. Which I thought it was fantastic. I can't even imagine what Freddy is thinking at that point. And then we're back at the apartment. The ham looks disgusting. And I did like the moment when it smashed the glass and then Eve just accidentally, on purpose, knocked off Frasier's sangria because she wanted to serve her sangria, which is fair enough after the snarky comment Frasier made at the beginning of the episode. Frasier and Alan are then in the apartment. They are arguing, and Frasier said, tragic news, David, ham day is cancelled. And David said, what? No. The way he said it was so much like Niles. I could hear Niles saying it. It was so beautiful. And then we have more arguing, but then Alan and Frasier decide, reluctantly at first, to tell the story of the origins of Ham Day. And slowly, as they go through this anecdote, they begin to realise the great value in their friendship and that they shouldn't let this moment ruin decades of a beautiful friendship. And Eve then comes from her apartment with some prepared ham, as if she'd prepared the ham on a platter. And I will say I'm surprised that Frasier was so willing to just go straight into that ham. I'm surprised he wasn't so protective that he wouldn't dare let somebody else prepare the ham. But nevertheless, they dive in and it seems like they're getting away with it. David's guilt gets the better of him and he confesses to everything. Frasier's response when he walks to the kitchen. I love the fact that he goes towards the kitchen opening and we can see the ham in the distance. We don't get a close-up of the ham, but we can just see it lying on the floor in the background. And I don't know why, but I just found that so much funnier than if they'd done a close-up of the ham. And I just think it's absolutely brilliant. And we end with everybody gathered around, beautifully framed, very well done, picking glass out of the ham and eating it. And it's a nice way to end things, not necessarily how Frasier expected Ham Day to go, but very funny. Highlights from the episode. Oh gosh, I don't know. Frasier discovering the snooker ball was how Alan made decisions. I thought was very, very funny. David saying what no, like Niles, and the interrogation with Freddy in the fire station. So really fabulous episode, really, really strong start. I know some things that are coming. In fact, I've seen a lot of footage. I've basically watched Frasier clips on Instagram for the past, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4 months. They've been giving us quite a lot of teasers. So I know what's to come. And I'm just so desperate to find out how certain things come about. But I'll say no more than that, just in case you have avoided those spoilers. But I will say it's looking like it's going to be an amazing season. It looks like it's also only another 10-episode season from Wikipedia. And I had hoped we'd get a full-length season. Maybe they'll do season 2 part 2 early next year. I have no reason to believe that other than wishful thinking. But either way, even if we only get 10, where it lacks in quantity, it will absolutely make up for it in quality. And Ham is a really fabulous start to the second season.